Good evening and welcome to the November 4th, 2025 Board of Ed meeting. Ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully everyone had a uneventful and very rest-filled weekend, Halloween weekend. We're going to start off right away with a special report, our district report card.
All right, good evening. So our district report card presentation typically shows a snapshot, a moment in time, that is a performance summary to help answer the question, how are we doing as a district? So tonight we're looking at data that mostly represents Pleasantville during the 2024-25 school year with some current information as well. We're all familiar with the standard student report card, which is a report of progress and status, but we understand that a student's experience in class will never be wholly represented by a numeric rating or a letter grade. So the mission statement of the district should be what guides us, and ultimately how we judge whether or not we're getting an A. If you recall our last board meeting, we had a presentation by our counseling department, which was outstanding. And many of the things that they brought up, you see reflected in our presentation. So if I point out for example, the third bullet on that list, exploration of individual passions and celebration of accomplishments. And the second one, safe, supportive environment, respect and collaboration. Those were themes from the counseling presentation. Other things to note on there. Rich, differentiated academic programs. That speaks to the individual needs of our students. Exploration of individual passion and celebration of accomplishments. That speaks to the things our students like to do and the things that motivate them. So teaching is both an art and a science. The qualitative and quantitative information that we gather informs our understanding of our students and provides insights into how we can effectively support them or empower them, as you see in our mission, and their teachers to thrive. One of the things we always show during our presentations on data is who our students are from a demographic standpoint. So I use the word snapshot and moment of time. For New York State schools, that moment of time frequently comes in early October for the BEDS report. New York State gathers a whole bunch of different kinds of information early in the year in the form of this BEDS form. So last year, or I should say this year, we have 1,603 students. So on the left-hand side, the demographic data is constant in some areas, has changed over time in others. So first of all, that 1603, again, that snapshot, that was a month ago. That's different now. And that'll fluctuate slightly over the course of the year. Our percentages in Asian and Pacific Islander students, pretty constant over the past 13 years. So we have easy data from New York State over the past 13 years, the 2012-2013 school year. Black African American, same percentage. Those are pretty constant. The percentage of Hispanic Latino students in those 12 years, that has risen about 12 points, 12%. Multiracial, probably the newest category in the New York State system. That was between 0 and 1% 12 years ago. That's now 5%. So the percentage of white students in Pleasantville was 84% in 2012, now 69. On the right-hand side, you see groups and classifications. So our English language learner population, that in that same time period doubled from 2% to 4%. And there's a lot of different classifications with regards to English language learners. So these students come to us, and to access the rest of their education, we need to make sure to the highest degree possible that they can relate to the content through language. So we have some students that are almost ready to exit the ELL process, and then students on the other end of the spectrum, and we will serve all of those. Economically disadvantaged, this is a percentage of our population that's taking advantage of any sort of service like SNAP or free and reduced lunch, which of course is a little bit more difficult now with the benefit of the free meal program. The incentive to sign the free and reduced lunch information form isn't there, but we still need people to do that because that's what gives us these accurate figures. Special ed classification, 21%. That's pretty stable. Looking back 12 years, you can definitely see a before and after COVID steadiness. So for the past 5 years, we've been around 21%. Before that, it was between 16 and 17%, steady with that COVID bump. So what makes our students tick? So if you look at this graphic, the graphic really represents the major elements of our students' lives in school. Our students are multifaceted individuals. They're not data points. So in our student experience, you have academic progress. We are, in fact, a school. Explorations of passions and interests. Again, those things that motivate and drive us. On the left-hand side, community engagement. There are a lot of different ways our students can participate, both within school and without. And then on the bottom, college and career readiness. It's a New York State term, and that's really how we're preparing them for things beyond. Every family who has more than one child, I want you to think about that graphic in terms of each of your children. Because you might have an academic, you might have an athlete, you might have an artist, you might have a politician, you might have an introvert, you might have an extrovert. Our students are not all alike. So this graphic is really designed to look at our students through the lens of all the different things that we have a responsibility for. So those explorations of passions and interests. From BRS, where choice is built throughout the school day, through the middle school, where students begin to exert more free will, whether us parents like it or not, to the high school, our students need avenues for their passions and interests. So we look at some of those bullet lists. Arts, both extracurricular and curricular. Dual enrollment opportunities to allow our high school students to get credit not only for high school, but for undergraduate. STEAM, we've been talking a lot about that during our capital project presentations. We offer that K-12. And electives. 38 elective offerings in core academic departments in the high school. I would love to be here to take journalism, astronomy, military history. These are all the ways that our school takes the master schedule, takes the basic academics, and around it wraps everything else kids need. If you want community engagement, you're certainly in the right place if you're in Pleasantville. When you're in grades K through 12, your world is frequently defined by your street or the town or your school. So with that identity in mind, we take advantage of Pleasantville's communal mindset. Elementary social studies, for example, is all about community. At the middle school, you can earn a community service award by what you do on the outside. And many of our high school honor societies and our Echo Club, they revolve around community service. Senior internships, that half step outside the Pleasantville bubble, probably one of the most important things we do for our high school students. In athletics, where leadership and service are prominent, almost 2/3 of our middle school and high school students participate in interscholastic activities. So again, going back to that mission, our goal is to empower students to thrive as lifelong learners, dynamic thinkers, and compassionate, contributing citizens. It's important to remember that although we are very deliberate in our creation of a place where students can follow their passions and get involved, we still have a significant core academic purpose. The interscholastic skills and social emotional awareness that you see represented here, or when you see the counseling presentation, for example, these are counterparts to the proficiency we need in reading, writing, and arithmetic. So how are we balancing the student experience with the academic tools and preparing for what New York State calls college and career readiness? How are we getting that A on our district report card? I'd like to invite our new district director of curriculum instruction assessment, Dr. Joshua Deitch, for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Latinsky. Hello, everybody. Good evening. It's nice to be here, and it's been really nice to get to know Pleasantville in my entry into this experience. So, hello. And that's a really good question to talk about, is how do we know that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing? And the big thing we'll talk about, and I apologize for the small text on the screen for those in the room, there's just a lot to talk about. And basically what I would say is when we think about data, first and foremost, data is everywhere. While we're going to talk about some very specific data points that are going to be publicly available, those are, if you imagine the iceberg kind of analogy, where that information is the very, very tip that you see right above the surface of the water. Everything else that happens, all the other information that we use, whether it is classroom observations, end of unit assessments, daily work and engagement with our students, or some more stuff that I'll go into in a moment, that is all the stuff that happens under the water that it's not as publicly visible, it's not viewable, because it is the daily work of our teachers and our administrators and the work of our buildings to make sure that every student gets exactly what they need. And so when we think about that, one of the things you'll see is that on that slide that's up there, beyond the post and pre-unit assessments, beyond some of the other stuff we'll talk about, there are some very specific benchmark assessments that we use, whether it's the iReady diagnostic tool that is a dynamic platform that is online, and students will use it in grades K through 8, although at the end of 8th grade, most students will not be taking those end-of-year assessments because we use the final exam experience. That tool gives us really clear, meaningful, real-time data that teachers use to establish instructional goals, work with students on an individual basis, establish kind of intentional groupings along the way. It's a really wonderful tool that we use to inform building level cycles of intentional information, evaluation, and then action. So the graphic on the right is really designed to establish this understanding of an continuous improvement model of, like I said, you gather data, you analyze it at a child support team level or at a team level with teachers, and then you make intentional decisions about how we can work with every student in every group, or about our curriculum. And so sometimes when you take a look at those results, sometimes it leads to a deeper dive with those building level teams. Sometimes it leads to a referral to our multi-tiered system of support, academic intervention services, or even potentially special education. But only after a series of cycles of analysis, intervention, evaluation of that adjustment, and then further collaboration. Beyond that individual student level, you also have these experiences that can lead to questions regarding instruction and curriculum as a whole. When in the year are we teaching nonfiction in BRS, for example? Or how do the shifting standards or shifting tests, designs of, say, the Regents exams help us think about how we are structuring our courses, structuring the content in those individual courses so that we can then provide the most relevant experience possible to make sure the students are prepared to take these end-of-year assessments. A quick anecdotal aside, as part of my work and getting used to this district and getting to know it, I've been meeting with a lot of different people one-on-one. I happen to be meeting with Joanne Puglisi, who is our science department chair, and one of the life science teachers walked into her room to say exactly what we were just talking about. She walked in and she said, you know, I've been taking a look at these questions that the students had worked on last year. They've been giving us more and more guidelines. I've been working with my team of teachers to build out thoughtful questions and give them meaningful experiences to set things forward. Ultimately, the best way to contextualize what we're going to talk about and what you're going to see in terms of students is to understand that about 3/4 or more of those students continue to perform proficiently or better on these expected experiences. This means that a majority of our students continue to be well served by our Tier 1 classroom model, where all the students are provided with an experience that is going to have the impact for the most students possible. And then that allows us to engage effectively, intentionally, and in targeted ways with the 15 to 20% of the population who might need further support. One of the things I've heard in my short time here is because we have so many models of data, whether it is that iReady benchmark or those benchmark assessments through the Fountas and Bunnell assessments or anything else, we are able to engage students and enact our AIS processes as soon as possible and not have to wait. So it gives us a lot of opportunity to make sure that students are not waiting for what they need, they are already provided for it. I got the remote control right and everything. Fabulous. So as we look at the next slide, we're going to talk specifically about the New York State testing program, and that's what that NYSTP stands for. Basically, you have across the top of the screen, you have the 3 different New York State tests that our students are required to take as part of the Every Student Succeed Act. Those tests are in English Language Arts, Mathematics, and Science. And even though these are required, we still do have a percentage, as you see on the board, of test refusals. While we're never going to fight families to force them to take tests, it's important to understand that those are things that we're required to do. And as much as we're talking about these as being a snapshot in time, because of the way we use information, when families do kind of choose not to do that, it doesn't give us all the information we have that we can make sure that we are giving the most robust experience possible. Anyway, moving on, what I would say about these tests, so New York State test provides that a score of through level 3 or level 4 is proficiency, and you can see as on the board that all of our students are performing well. Like I said, 3/4 or more of our students are performing at or above that mark, and more importantly, what I would kind of note is that when you look at that in regards to local regional data, those numbers tend to be about 10 to 15% higher than our local southern Westchester BOCES experience with other school districts. So, and then when you widen that out to the Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland counties of BOCES, we are doing about 15 to 25% better in those experiences. The one thing I would point out, and it clearly looks as an outlier on this graphic up here, is the fact that you can see the 8th grade science test. There is a large number of student population who do not take that test. That is not because they are refusing, that is because those students have progressed in their science experience and education. When we talk about rich, differentiated experience, we're talking about opportunities for kids to go at the pace that they're ready to go, and a lot of our students are going at a faster pace in this experience and moving into the 9th grade Earth Science Regents experience. So instead of taking 2 exams, one that doesn't actually cover the material that they are actually learning in a 9th grade Regents course, the students just take that 9th grade Regents experience, even though they are in 8th grade, which is a wonderful experience. Last thing I'll say about the New York State testing program, one of the reasons that we chose to put this information in this graphic and to reinforce some of the conversations we've already been having is that you can see that this graphic is incomplete. It does not cover grades K through 2, doesn't cover grades 9 through 12, and the science experience really only covers 2 grades of a student's experience. And so, let alone, we're not talking about science, social studies, we're not talking about a world language experience or anything having to do with our related arts as well when it comes to these experiences. So these tests are used really thoughtfully. They're used to inform what we're going to do. They're used for us to kind of consider how we're going to make next steps and continue to make progress along the way. And they should not be the only indicator for the fact that if our students are making necessary progress, if our instruction is meeting their needs, because it is one piece of, like I said, that bigger iceberg that we're talking about.
Do you have any idea if that percentage of participation for the science in the 8th grade is reflective of Westchester in general? I mean, should we be looking to the state to rethink whether this is an appropriate test given the low participation, or does it still have value within other districts?
I think that's a good question. I think what I would say is that I think overarchingly, especially in districts like ours, you do see a dip in participation. That said, we don't want to discount students who are in 8th grade general education experiences, right? Mm-hmm. We don't want to discount students who are still on that very normal, appropriate level of pace that they're going to, and so we shouldn't just be, I think we shouldn't throw the data out, but I think it should be taken with a maybe somewhat larger grain of salt than some of the other data, especially because of the tests that are on the board right there. This is the most recently edited and updated version. And so while I could say, in the conversations we've been having, one of the things I would say is that the ELA and the math, you have a general sense of how to compare past data, although there's varying reasons why even a longitudinal study right now of even the last 5 years is challenging. Mm-hmm. This one would be much more about what we're doing now and how we're going to inform things in the future. And that also would just I will just add, speaking of longitudinal experiences, the last thing to notice on this slide is this past year was the first year in district that grades 3 through 8 entirely took the test as a computer-based testing experience. So the results remained relatively consistent between last year and this year, so it lets us know that teaching, learning, and instruction is sound and consistent, and that the kind of medium by which the students are taking the test, while something to learn and know, was not a hindrance going forward. And to make that final point, next year will probably be the first year in the last 5 to 7 years that the students will have taken a similar experience on similar tests, similar standards, similar medium than they have over the past 5 to 7 years. So again, it's easier to extrapolate some data, but not all, especially because every cohort is slightly different as well. So we were talking about grades 3 through 8. Now we get to move to the high school, and the Regents exams provide another snapshot into understanding our older students' progress. We as a district do not offer every Regents exam offered in New York State. We're required to test in all 4 core academic areas, which is how the slide is set up on the screen. You can see how it's broken down by subject and then by test area. Because these are by subject and subject specific, while the 3 through 8 ELA and math tests assess the same standards and skills every year, these don't necessarily do that for us, and certainly do not do that for a consistent cohort of students, right? Your students who are taking chemistry, for example, the chemistry Regents might not be, and I could probably guarantee you, might not be those same students as a whole that were taking the 3rd grade science state test however many years ago they were taking it. And so again, it's a meaningful understanding of where we are in this moment in time and how things are going. Another important information about the longitudinal veracity of something like this is to understand that while the state tests are out of a scale of 4, the Regents are out of a scale of 5, and level of proficiency is still noted as 3 and above. So students are performing particularly well in these tests. They're meeting those standards as a large majority. Again, going back to our conversation about offering the most differentiated and rich and curriculum possible. Of the tests on the board that are the Algebra 1 test and the Earth Science test, 42% of our Algebra 1 Regents students were 8th grade students who had accelerated into that course, and 44% were of the Earth Science test were students who had accelerated into the Earth Science course from the 8th grade as well. So we are giving students a lot of pathways through these different proficiency experiences to make sure that we're meeting those proficient and those students who are ready to move forward, while also, to the question before, making sure that the other students are getting exactly what they need as well. So I will say that as much as we've talked about this being a moment in time and snapshot and data, like I talked about before, teachers, department chairs, and administrators actively utilize the information from these tests to ensure that students are prepared for the skills, competencies, and habits of mind that are assessed. And so when we look at ultimately the last slide that we'll talk about in terms of standardized testing experiences and publicly accessible data, one of the things that we'll talk about is our wonderful opportunities for students to take advanced placement courses and exams. And to make sure that we're all on the same page, advanced placement are those courses that are approved by the College Board that traditionally were designed to recognize that students were doing college level work and would in some instances receive college level credit. That has changed over time with different schools looking at these scores and tests and experiences differently, but it is still an advanced level of coursework that we are really proud to say, as an open enrollment district, we've had the most number of AP offerings that we've had this year. We've had more students, a higher level of percentage achieve a level 3 or higher, which is again proficient than we have had in the past. So our students are performing excellently in these highest level and advanced level courses that are prescribed. And as Dr. Litinsky mentioned before, when we look at this from a perspective of breadth and richness of curriculum, we can't ignore those dual enrollment courses that are providing even higher level or different level of challenge and experience that are in broader subject areas as well. So it's a really wonderful experience for students to be able to challenge these courses at the level that they want to. The last thing I would kind of tout and celebrate is that as I was digging into this information, we as a district, the way the students have performed on this, we achieved last year a AP Honor Roll Gold status, which means that it is based on 3 different criteria. College culture, which requires 65% or more of the graduating cohort to have taken at least one AP exam during high school. College credit, 35% or more of the graduating cohort had to have scored a 3 or higher on at least one AP exam. And college optimization, which requires 10% or more of the graduating cohort to have taken 5 or more AP exams during their high school experience, with at least one having been taken before 11th or 12th grade, which means that one of the things, again, it looks at is in terms of access, opportunity, and kind of making sure that students are not overwhelming themselves to cram as much as they can into their final 2 years of their high school experience when there is a breadth of curriculum and opportunity in the district. So, hooray, gold. And that leads us to a very end of our conversation, which is ultimately this report card cannot simply be about a single data point at a single moment in time. It has to be about how we support every student every day in an inclusive community that promotes individual engagement, exploration, and excellence. And the only way we can do that, looking at that screen, and you can see, is that we have wonderfully thoughtful teachers who are working their rear ends off to make sure that their students are getting exactly what they need. They're getting a variety of information, working with the building level teams and their administrators and curriculum leaders to make the necessary adjustments to make sure that we're meeting the state standards, but also to make sure that we're providing a rich and robust curriculum, community and academic and school experience that will allow students to figure out, I always like to say, the thing that is their thing. And ultimately that leads to some really wonderful results, as you can see from our last year's graduation rate, which was 100%. And we can see where our students went, which was overwhelmingly wonderful, and also about finding those kind of best fit schools and not necessarily the quote unquote best schools. So I think it's a really wonderful and robust opportunity for us to kind of celebrate where we are, recognize that there's always opportunity for us to continue to grow and learn and move forward, and that this doesn't happen because we're standing still. This is happening because we are consistently adjusting and moving with the nature of our students in front of us, as well as the evolving standards and expectations of New York State as well. So without anything else having to be said, that is our district report card.
It's only been here a month.
Thank you.
That's pretty good. Julian, did you have a question?
Yeah, do you know how the AP scores compare with the national data?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for the most part, those AP scores compare pretty similarly to where we are in terms of ELA and math and the Regent scores, where we are outperforming the national data in a lot of different ways. I think there are some courses in there that don't always match that, but part of that is that when you look back on the slide, some of those courses where I say, you know, if you look at a course of 9 students taking the course, if 2 or 3 of those students don't kind of reach that proficiency, even though Physics 2 at the top right is probably one of the more challenging AP experiences you're going to have. If 2 or 3 of those students don't quite hit that level of 3, they're not going to, that number is going to significantly shift and move. I think one of the things that I would say is that overarchingly when we have that meaningful data, that larger sample size, we're right in line where we need to be. And then when you get smaller and smaller, it's a good reminder to ourselves that as a smaller district like ours, we should celebrate the breadth of experience that we offer students, as well as the options and ultimate chances to challenge these courses, without necessarily recognizing that 1 or 2 students might change the numbers drastically one way or the other. So that number, for example, that Physics 2 number might look vastly different next year because maybe different students, different groups, things like that.
And also, is there any data that indicates that potential detrimental impact that the pandemic had on students' learning?
So I think that's a great question. I think we're all still trying to figure out the deep impacts of what might have happened in terms of the COVID experience. We talk about that COVID tail in particular. I think one of the things that I would say is that data-wise, especially because of what we were talking about before, it's hard to say there was a clear impact, because it's hard to say that those tests at that time were really meaningful, because there was a lot of different experiences, whether they were untimed, whether they were a little bit more open-ended, whatever it might be, not necessarily required in the same way. So it's hard to say that we have longitudinal data in that way. What I can say is, anecdotally, one of the things we're thinking a lot about is the way adolescents and the way kind of we're seeing differences in students over the kind of longitudinal experience since COVID, which has a lot to do with not just COVID, but the proliferation of technology, the challenges that students are experiencing in terms of consistent, sustained attention, and what that means in terms of kind of the practice of doing school in order for a space of learning, because I think that was something that across the board, school districts are still trying to manage and figure out how to work effectively. In terms of the actual data itself, because the standards and the kind of goalposts kept moving over the last few years, it's hard to say that that's the data that I would check and say this is where I can say 100% wholly that that's how this was impacted. I would say it's going to be more anecdotal, qualitative data for a little while.
And to sort of add to that, because experienced this over the last 4 years. The data that we're seeing right now are really like year-end tests, right? They're snapshots in time that tend to take place towards the end of the year. And tell me if I'm wrong here, if we're doing something different, but my understanding was from previous presentations is this is one tool of many that the teachers use to evaluate progress.
Absolutely.
And so there are constant adjustments, and I think one of the presentations going back in 21 or 22 was that we saw an impact, and it was unclear what the impact was, whether it was from the testing, whether it was because of being sick, whether it was because of doing remote sessions, that there was a dip. But the teachers adjusted to account for that, and they used the real-time tools to sort of adjust for those things. Yeah. One of the other things that I think is important here, and maybe to explain it to the public, and I'm not sure who wants to take it, is the open enrollment concept and the philosophy behind that has an impact. And discussing that, and also the dual enrollment, which is something that I think was started 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe it may have been earlier and I just became aware of it 2 or 3 years ago, but it's a pretty fantastic program that I believe counts for college credit all the time as opposed to the APs, which some schools take, some schools don't.
Correct. Yeah. To clarify, so when we talk about open enrollment, we talk about the fact that students are invited to challenge for these AP courses if they have met certain prerequisites along the way. What that means is that it gives the opportunity for students who may not have in the past received a recommendation to go into that course to take that opportunity to take a test that they feel like they can do, or take a class that they feel like is most appropriate. Of course, they're going to have constant guidance and support along the way to make sure it's still not what I like to call a strain rather than a stretch. But at the same time, what that ends up with is that we have a much wider data pool of students, and you might end up with, like we talked about, that one student who might not have been in the course or might not have felt like they could take that course, ending up with a 3 and eligible for that college credit that they might not have been in the past. And in terms of the dual enrollment piece, I'd have to double check with Joe to make sure how long it's been, but how long has it been that we've been doing it? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello and good evening. So dual enrollment is new in some areas in the high school, but not in others. So dual enrollment as it exists through SUNY Westchester Community College and SUNY Albany has been here for a very long time. In about 2020, we began a partnership with Syracuse University. We now offer a handful of SUPA courses through them, where you're dually enrolled here for credit and at the university. Teachers travel there during the summer months. They become approved as adjuncts. So that is something that is somewhat recent. We recently made a shift in our science research program. Historically, that was through SUNY Albany. We pivoted as a result of a lack of flexibility on their end. We now partner through Syracuse University for that. And we're also looking at some additional courses. General feedback from students around these experiences is that the courses do not end in the same single assessment in the same way on one day that the AP exams do. It's typically more experiential and project-based learning, so it is more appealing to students in the building. And as a result, we're looking at some different opportunities for the upcoming school year that we might look to introduce for students. Any other questions about dual enrollment?
No, thank you. I wanted the community to understand that these are options that they do impact our students' experience, right? The open enrollment means that you're deciding that we're going to allow kids to test themselves and have this experience, and the dual enrollment really opens up doors that we couldn't run on our own, really, and gives them guaranteed credit or close to guaranteed credit.
And I just want to note that the open enrollment goes hand in hand with very close and personal counseling that students receive from the members of our school counseling department here. Because our primary goal is to have students challenge themselves appropriately and set them up for both, academic and personal success. So as we go through all the different course offerings with students in February and March to develop the academic programs for the upcoming school year, counselors will carefully look at the student profile on an individual basis and have conversations about areas where students might stretch themselves, but make sure that there's enough support in place so they're successful in that experience. So that open enrollment piece, it is open, and we work closely to make sure that it's open and appropriate so that students are supported here in the building and that they have the type of experience that we'd like them to have.
Yeah, I like the catchphrase, stretch, not strain.
That's correct.
I think it's good characterization.
I would say that open enrollment question really encapsulates the point of this presentation. That if we had an AP course in which all the students were getting 1s, we might rethink it. But the point here isn't to increase the percentage of 3s. At no point would I advocate taking a look at any of these data and saying, we need to be 5% higher across the board. That's missing the point. Because what you just heard about the open enrollment conversation is that we don't deal with percentage wholes. We deal with humans. And the important part is to look at the 7% that might not be proficient in that grade and find out why, and then give them what they need. So you deal with it on an individual basis, not on a whole. The whole is a guide. It gives you direction. We have other ways to focus on our individual students. Can I answer any other questions?
Thank you all.
All right, so I would like to thank Dr. Deitch for putting all this together. It would also not have happened without the cooperation and input of our administrative team, many of whom you see here. I know he also worked with a lot of our staff members, so this is a real good group effort, and I'm very proud of this presentation. I hope it gives you an indication of whether or not Pleasantville is getting an A. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for extending the school day to come see us and the work that went into this. Appreciate it. Dr. Shikaris? Just kidding. I am going to go off script because I see we have an audience member here. We will be approving, presumably approving as part of the consent agenda, a donation made by a local community group. I know that Mr. Burton would love to sit through the rest of this meeting, which is going to run 2.5 hours. So I'm going to let him off the hook and ask him to come up, present the check, and tell us a little bit about his organization. Just stand right in front of me and speak into my mic. Up at the podium, please.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to be here. My name is Tony Burton. I'm from Pleasantville, and tonight I'm here in the capacity of the head of our charitable committee for the Pleasantville Hiawatha Lodge, number 434, which is located right down on Manville. If you see our annual Christmas tree, that's where we are, so it's easy to find us every year. So it's coming up, so if you need your trees, I'm plugging away already. One of the key components to our lodge is that we do a lot of charitable endeavors, and it was brought to our attention that there were some students in all three schools that were carrying a financial burden above and beyond the free school lunch program. And understanding that could cause duress for the child, it was brought to our attention that, is this something we could help out with? And of course, this aligns exactly with what we like to do at our lodge and to try and donate to anything in our community. And it was unanimously passed to write a check to cover that debt for those children, hoping to ease that burden from them. And so school is hard enough, life is hard enough, we don't want them to have to carry this financial burden. So it's the least we could do. So we are here with a check like Ed McMahon. I'm here to give it to you, Dr. Latinsky, if you understand the reference. And it's our pleasure to give this to Thank you very much on behalf of the district. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a great organization, does a lot of charitable work around the community, as do a lot of other groups that donate a lot of money, time, effort, volunteer hours to the community, and that's what makes this a special place. I will now turn it back to you for your special report. I'm going to wear you out tonight.
I have some really good things to say. All right, so in addition to being election day, today was one of Pleasantville's superintendent's conference days. These are days designated for professional development for teachers, administrators, and staff. We have 2 during the school year, 1 in November, and the next is in March. So what do we do all day when your children are home? Across the district, we take advantage of the absence of students by gathering in groups not possible if we had to follow a bell schedule. At the district-wide level, our special education staff participated in crisis prevention intervention training, which stresses de-escalation techniques to help students navigate between emotions and the school environment. The music department attended an off-site conference at the Music Conservatory of Westchester. BRS and middle school staff spent time reviewing the special education continuum, particularly on projections and calibration of program, and all staff had time to collaborate on curriculum mapping. At the building level, BRS focused on reading fundamentals planning to help students interact with text, including in the related arts class, and then as a result, worked on evaluating and reorganizing their classroom libraries. At the middle school, we continued to explore classroom workflows using the Apple technology, along with Schoology and Microsoft, and did a deep dive into artificial intelligence policy, social and environmental issues, and acceptable tools to begin exploring for both teacher productivity and as a way to begin exposing students to safe and secure AI platforms. The high school concentrated on pre-reading strategies for QFT, the question formulation technique, as a means of improving critical thinking and self-direction. The English department had part one of 2 personal narrative writing workshops with consultant Wendy Freed, with the goal of improving college essay skills. Our upper grade counselors traveled to Seton Hall University for PD in college process and student access, and we introduced new Schoology and Microsoft integrations for collaborative assignments, as well as new AI tools into the platform. And that was all today. This week of November 3rd to the 7th is National School Psychology Week. This celebrates the important role they play in schools and communities. The National Association of School Psychologists set this year's theme as Finding Your Path, reflecting the ways that school psychologists help students, families, and school communities set and achieve their goals. In light of the district report card presentation and the way we approach students as individuals, we thank our school psychologists for making a difference every day. From around our schools at BRS, our kindergartners embarked on their community walk, and I passed them on the sidewalk, and they were very curious but very orderly. And second graders participated with ARC Stages in the Vision and Voices program. We thank the PTA for supporting this partnership. At the middle school, the 5th grade as well kicked off their partnership with ARC Stages with an exciting improv show. Throughout the year, students will work on writing their own scripts, guided by visiting teaching artists who come into our classrooms to help bring their ideas to life. At the end of the year, the actors will perform selected student-written scripts in a special showcase. At the high school, we congratulate our outstanding vocalists and musicians who recently performed at the Westchester County Area All-State Concert in band, treble chorus, and mixed chorus. Also, you might see lawn signs regarding the New York Blood Center's blood drive that our Echo Club is assisting with this week. We're extremely proud of the accomplishments of our athletic teams this fall. It was amazing watching our community come together to support our teams during and through the end of their seasons. Both varsity boys and girls soccer battled their way into the Section 1 Class A championships, both versus Rye. Varsity field hockey gave a valiant effort in the semifinal versus powerhouse Bronxville. Varsity boys and girls cross country will compete in the section championships this weekend at Bowdoin Park. And Claire Sharif will compete in the dive championships this Thursday at Purchase College. And we had a lot of fun on Halloween. The Ragamuffin Parade was the previous Sunday, saw beautiful weather, a huge turnout by the community, and I always admire how determined kids can be while trying to walk in Halloween costumes. BRS had their own parade on Halloween itself, with around 600 students and staff making 2 laps around the playground and academy. I was in the middle school at the right moment to not only feel the adolescent enthusiasm of Halloween on a Friday, but hear the instructions over the PA, which included the directive to deflate any inflatable costumes during class time. And thank you to the PCO and the class of 2026 for the wonderful senior Halloween breakfast. It was great to see faculty and staff in all 3 buildings participate in costumes as well. And thanks to our BRS custodial crew for accommodating county voting in their gymnasium today. Polls close at 9 o'clock, and then our crew will clean and prepare the space for students tomorrow morning. And now I'd like to invite our student ex officio trustee, Julian, to offer some observations.
Thank you. Now, back to you with update on our capital project.
May I talk more, please? Thank you. So regarding Pleasantville Forward Together, we're preparing for our next community forum on November 20th at 7:30 in our high school auditorium. I expect that presentation to include a clear indication of what may be included in each of the 3 areas of our overall plan, and then presented to the Board of Education in early January. Thus far, we have heavily featured information on our Fields and Lights proposals in our forums, mostly because that was chronologically the earliest. However, we will be able to share more of what our BRS outdoor space might look like, and specifically how we plan to make capital improvements for STEAM instruction. To reiterate the basics, recommendations that came out of our subcommittee process includes, for Field and Lights, refurbishing the backfield without adding turf, but adding improvements for grass fields, athletic infrastructure like dugouts and a scoreboard, and better fan seating. Returfing the main and small fields and replacing the track, adding fences, bathrooms, and concessions, turfing the small practice upper field, and installing permanent lights. Accompanying this would be a lighting policy to govern use and sound mitigation strategies, both to recognize the location of our neighbors. For BRS, the subcommittee has given its recommendations to our architect and had a remote meeting with them this week. It was made clear that we want more than one play structure to accommodate different grades. We want grass and shade, additional play and activity areas, new fencing, and an improved security gate. And for science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math, the STEAM subcommittee created a set of proposed renovations that have been given to our architects, and we have met with them as well. Science, arts, and multipurpose spaces were identified for upgrades, including audio and visual technology, modern flexible furniture, increased storage, and improved utility placement. As we noted in previous meetings, critical infrastructure items like the BRS chillers, high school water pumps and auditorium lights, and the PA security system were accelerated so that plans could be completed concurrent with our May vote. Other items for the forum include basic information on a borrowing schedule and some bond information. Keep in mind there will be no specific dollar amounts available yet for us to answer the question, how much will this cost? That would be in the following forum. Also in November, we will discuss referendum categories, or in other words, how we're packaging or bundling the various components to put on a ballot. To continue our efforts to keep our community up to date on Pleasantville Forward Together, all information is up to date on our website, and there will be postcards and electronic communications in advance of the community forum. Again, that's Thursday, November 20th, 7:30 in the high school auditorium. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very fulsome. I encourage anyone that's watching to come out to the forum. We've had incredible engagement both on the subcommittees and committees as well as the forums. There are a lot of questions out there, and I think we have a lot of answers. It's just making sure the answers are getting to the people that have the questions. So please come to the meeting, tell your neighbor to come to the meeting, tell a friend to come to the meeting. These are important things that we're talking about. We're flooding you with a lot of information because frankly, there's just a lot that goes into all of this. So again, encourage everybody to show up and participate, listen, stay for as long or as little as you like, but definitely inform yourself about this because there's a lot of detail, and I think this project is going to be a really great one for Pleasantville. A lot of the neighboring school districts have engaged in upgrades earlier than us. So we're a little bit behind. It'd be really fantastic to, especially the BRS portion of it, after we've seen the drawings that Lucas shared with us, getting some of these things for our community and for our kids. With that, we'll move it on to discussion items. I think this one falls squarely on my lap since I caused it to be a discussion item. I did not mean for it to become a discussion item. So it is the Natural Gas Procurement Optimization Program. I know you all are fascinated by this and want to know all the details. Effectively, it's a hedging agreement which trades a variable floating rate on the price for gas to a fixed rate, and you enter into a term contract. I had a couple of questions on it, which I think were answered. So we don't need to make a discussion, but anyone that would like to share their thoughts on it, more than welcome.
I think I'll give a very brief explanation of what this program would do. And what we're working with is a consultant, energy consultant called the Energy Resources Corporation. And they will help us to take advantage of the deregulation of the gas prices. And the first thing we need to know is that for heating, our school district only use gas, natural gas. We do not use oil. And in fact, we have removed 2 oil tanks already. So BRS doesn't have oil tank, and the middle school was removed, I think, 2021, the year I came. So the high school still have oil tank, and our plan is to have that removed probably this coming summer. I think it's safer, because that tank still has oil in there, so the best way is to remove it. So how do we take advantage of it? So we are working with this consultant. Their specialty is actually help us to bid out this contract. And so they give us a sample contract. I think all the board members has it. So they went out. This is a very short turnaround. They only went to five contractors, and 4 of them responded, and 1 did not. And just based on the information we have, and just based on 4 months, 5 months, they think we can save probably over $10,000. And I think overall, if we do it properly, early enough, this is probably should be bid out probably in April and May, around that time, to lock in for the 6 months. That's from November through April. And so I think, my estimation is that the savings probably can be between $15,000 to $20,000. And one of our neighboring district, Irvington, has been very successful using this contractor. And their savings every season is about $25,000. So how does it work is that right now we purchase gas from Con Ed. And Con Ed will still play a role because we use their delivery system. So ultimately, about 50% of the total cost. Last school year, our total cost for Con Ed was $212,000. So about $100,000 will probably still go to Con Ed because we're going to use their delivery system. Meanwhile, we'll contract the gas through this bidding process for a very specific company, and we'll have a contract with them. The consultant, obviously, there's a fee to it. The consultant fee is included in the bid price. That's how we're going to structure it. And so we will only have contract with 1 entity, not 2. We're not going to contract with the consultant. And so the tricky part is that how does it work? Because this is a bidding process, and you have to have a very fast turnaround. So our suggestion is that when we are ready to bid, we will designate a date. And the consultant, Energy Resources Corporation, will put out the bid. And the bid deadline will be noontime on our board meeting date. For example, if the board wants to go forward with this project, so the next board meeting is going to be November 18th. So our contractor will put out the bid and receive all the bids by 12 noon on November 18th. And then we'll present it to the board, the results. And if you approve it, the next morning we're going to contract. And so we can lock in the price. And with Con Ed, it requires 10 business day advance notice. So since our next board meeting is the 18th, we would have missed December contract. So we'll actually start January. So for this time around, it would just be 4 months. And as you go further into the season, probably the saving is probably less so. And so, but I think this is a good to test. And already asked the consultant that in May will actually give us a comparison, tell us how much we have saved, and then we can plan for the next school year. So that's basically the process.
Makes sense to me, and thank you for looking into ways to save us money. 'Cause I know the utilities have been constantly increasing, and it's good to know that we're thinking of those things.
That's right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will turn to recognition of the audience. Cheat sheet out. It is the practice of the Pleasantville Board of Education to allow for public expression during the recognition of the audience in accordance with District Policy 1510. Is there anybody that wishes to speak? There being no one, I'm going to close public comment and not read the rest of this, saving us about 10 minutes. So we've got two items on new business. One is a abolishment and establishment of a new position, and one is the approval of authorized organization to use school facilities. Can I get a motion to approve both new business A and B? Any discussion, questions, thoughts? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Passes. Now we will turn to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Any questions, comments, thoughts? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Mouse. All right, that will take us to closing remarks. So I will turn it over to Laura Donna first.
Just to reiterate what Dr. Lutinsky said, I was able to attend the BRS Halloween parade, and it was a very special day. Students, staff, teachers, community members were all thrilled to see everyone in their costume and enjoying their 2 laps around. And I was definitely the parent who went from the beginning of the line to the gate to see him again, even though I said I wasn't going to. So thank you. It was a lovely experience.
Thank you. Lucas?
I attended the New York State School Board Association conference in the city the other week, and a lot of attention was on, the seminars were on AI and the cell phone policy. And it was interesting. It was a good group of people, and the seminars were packed, especially with the AI version of the ones. Side of that, I was with our meeting with Rachel and Eric for the BRS playground yesterday. We are kickoff with the architect, and looking forward to seeing what they come up with in terms of some pricing.
That's great. Julian, did you have anything additional you wanted to add?
Maybe like, I guess, I'm continuing to brainstorm. I had met with Dr. Lutinsky, Dr. Deitch, and Mr. Sammartano a couple of weeks ago. I'm continuing to brainstorm just kind of the outline for a plan to create a committee primarily composed of students, discussions facilitated by these administrators focused on technology, the internet-enabled device ban, as well as ways to improve the current STEAM curriculum that's associated with the STEAM aspect of the capital project. And then other than that, no, not really.
Great. Well, I'm going to add one more thing to your list.
Congrats to all of our sports teams. I guess I'm on the cross-country team, so this weekend the boys and girls cross-country team will be traveling to Bowdoin Park to compete at the sectional championship. So good luck to them.
Julian is very humble. He's one of our exceptional runners. He's one of the guys at the front of the pack that makes it look like, I see him running, I'm like, I could do that. And I'm like, no, I can't. Definitely can't. I did want to bring up, one of the things that we've been talking about from time to time is the use of our facilities and making sure that they're being used appropriately. We've had unauthorized groups on, potentially uninsured on. From time to time, we've had people riding cars, dirt bikes, motorized scooters, electric vehicles. One of the things, at least my thought is, and I know there are people that disagree with it, is that enforcement is not necessarily always the right way to go about these things because it's imperfect. And nothing will be perfect, but do you think there'd be value to bringing this to the student government and teaching the students that these are their own facilities and that we have to all care for them and use them in an appropriate manner. And when they're riding, not asking them to enforce, but rather just make sure that their contemporaries are aware that what they're doing is actually a detriment to themselves, because it's hurting their facilities and their ability to use the facilities.
Sure, I suppose that there might be some value to that. Just bringing it up exclusively with the student government, or talking about it as a whole, making a school-wide announcement? Or?
I think maybe starting it with the school government and seeing if there's something that they would be interested in. Because again, I'm not looking to the students to enforce it, right? That's
Yeah,
obviously
right.
not appropriate. But educating their fellow students, because a lot of this isn't malicious, right? It's just not thinking about, oh, if I'm riding on the track, I'm actually damaging the track. And then,
Right.
People can't walk on it, people can't run on it. And I don't think that we have students that are malicious like that. I think it's just a lack of, they're not, oh man, I didn't realize I was ripping up the turf here.
No, absolutely. I think that would be valuable. Yeah, that's a good idea. I can definitely bring it up at the next meeting.
Great. And you did steal a little bit of my thunder because I wanted to wish you and your teammates good luck at Bowdoin. It's one of the flattest courses in all of Westchester. I think it's uphill like every direction that you go. The last thing that I had for sort of my closing remarks thoughts is, could you reach out to VIP and see if they would like to come in and tout some of their accomplishments and some of the things that they do? Our VIP soccer program, in particular, runs a program on Sunday, and we have a lot of high schoolers that participate in volunteering for that, and it would just be nice to have them come in and tell us a little bit about what they do and make sure that tradition continues. Any other closing remarks, thoughts, questions, concerns? Well, I'd like to thank you all again for extending your evening coming in. This was a great presentation. You enjoyed it. And now we're going to go into executive session. You guys can all go home. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn to executive session? All in favor? The board will be now convening to executive session to discuss the employment of a particular individual. We do not intend to return for any public action. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.